Good morning. Welcome, YouTube. We're glad that you're with us today. Thanks for watching. We're about to record episode 161 of the Family Meeting Podcast, and we're glad you're with us. I hope that you've had a great weekend. We had a really busy weekend. We went to Sarasota. This guy preached his fool head off 4 times this weekend.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend. Had a great time doing it, but all day Monday, I was like wiped out.
Yeah, you were
And
like a zombie.
Not much better Tuesday. I'm feeling a lot better today.
That's good.
I don't look better.
Look a lot better.
I feel better.
What's happening with your hair here?
I don't know. I'm just glad to have some up there.
Maybe you should have put your hat on for this episode.
Just kind of let it do its thing. Now
babe. I'm sorry, YouTube. This is why you listen to the podcast and not watch the video.
I've got a little bit left, so I just kind of let it do its thing. You know what I'm saying?
I think you're handsome, to be honest. I like to give you a hard time, but the truth is, you're my man. You're handsome. All right, should we do this episode, though? We're talking about the differences in our brains. We're going to talk about how I'm smarter than Thomas.
Actually, I was going to say there's a huge difference. I have some, she don't. So...
Listen to that sentence and you know that it's not true.
She don't.
You done learned that good book learning?
Yeah. So.
Good job.
I was homeschooled. My mom said my grammar was great. So.
And I have nothing to say.
I seen my diploma that she made me. She wrote it on a napkin. Graduate.
I have nothing to say right now.
That's a first. That is a first. Oh, speaking of cups, she's got this weird mug. I have my best officiant ever mug. Got it doing a beach wedding a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you are the best officiant ever.
And I got some delicious water in here because I don't drink coffee. And we didn't have any Red Bull on hand.
I don't think you even know how to hold a coffee mug correctly. Like that's...
Yeah, this is it.
You just drank it like this.
Yeah, see?
That's how you drink out of a mug, but you don't know because you've never tried.
Yes, it is.
No, you hold it like to the side and then you just drink this way.
No, that doesn't even feel right. Look.
You're not holding it right is why.
Yeah. What do you mean I'm not holding it right?
Like you're like holding it like this.
Yeah, you hold it. You're gripping it.
Oh man, we just had like 16 people unsubscribe from our YouTube channel.
Mazel tov.
During the mug situation.
No, actually we had 35 more subscribe just because of it.
Yeah, because people are like, yeah, teach them how to do a mug. All right.
Yeah, I'm teaching you.
We're going to record this episode right now.
Gather around, everybody. It's time for our family meeting. I think the way I hold the mug is right.
Oh, gosh. All right. Put it in the comments.
The family meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. I just don't understand.
Listen, I hold the mug right. You don't. And they're going to tell you in the comments.
No.
This is how you hold a coffee mug. This is how you drink out of a coffee mug.
Yeah, come on, keep drinking.
That is hot. You will burn me.
Not me.
You crazy boy.
If you were holding the mug right, I wouldn't be able to tip it like that.
If you're fancy, you put the pinky out. I am not fancy. I'm wearing sweatpants right now.
Where are the Osterkamps? I'm Thomas. This is my wife, Lysandra.
Hello and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 161 of the Family Meeting Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the differences in men's and women's brains.
Okay.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this episode because in kind of studying and researching for this episode, it's helped me a lot to understand Thomas better.
Spoiler alert, the brains are exactly the same. End of episode.
Yeah.
This meeting is...
No, don't even say it.
Okay.
It's not adjourned. Okay, so let's talk briefly about how this episode came into being. Because we talked about it a little bit on last week's episode. Last week, we talked about the difference in processing and how you can have an internal or an external processor. And that led us into this discussion.
Which, as we mentioned last week, is not necessarily a man-woman thing.
No, it's not. However, I feel like I can think of more female external processors than I can male external processors. But I know that's not, Official.
I would have to internally think about that for a while before I could come to a conclusion.
So by next week, after 7 days of internally processing, Thomas will tell us what he thinks about who's an external and internal processor. More men or more women.
By then, I'll forget about it.
Maybe that's one of the dangers of internally processing. You take too long and forget. What was I processing?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that discussion, like we were getting ready to have that podcast, and there was a Facebook post that I came across from a friend that talked about the difference in how they process. And under the comments, I was reading the comments because I found them so interesting. Somebody recommended, number one, a YouTube video from a man who was doing a marriage seminar.
Yeah.
And I now have forgotten his name. Do you remember it?
I don't, but the video has been posted in our Facebook Family Meeting Community group.
Yes. Okay, so get on Family Meeting Community on Facebook, and the link is there. I posted the video like 2 days ago. And we've already had people laughing and talking about how funny it is. And we watched the whole clip. It's a 13-minute clip, which feels pretty long.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it was so funny and it was well done and it was good. It brought on some discussion between you and I, which was fun. But anyway, another one of the comments underneath that post was a book called Men Are Like Waffles, Women Are Like Spaghetti by Bill and Pam Farrell. And this book is dated, and there are things about it that Thomas and I both dislike.
Yeah. I would not read the book again. There was some good information, but some of the stuff was like offensively stereotypical of both men and women. And
it was kind of trying to be like sarcastic and funny, but it rubbed me the wrong way personally. And then also, just some of it we disagreed with, flat out. But there was good information, and we're sharing some of that in here. And it kind of led us to looking at the differences in how men's and women's minds work. And so that is how this episode came into being.
Well, before we get to this episode, man, I'm just so excited for 2024. We've got some great events lined up. We've got some marriage retreats and conferences scheduled already for next year. I know we've got Mississippi. We're going to be coming to Mississippi. And let's see, and
that's a marriage conference?
We've got Ohio.
Okay.
And then Washington State lined up so far.
Okay, sounds great.
So
we're excited.
All around the country. And we'll let you know as soon as those get a little bit closer, give you the information in case you want to be a part of those speaking events. Maybe you would like us to come speak at your event. So you can shoot us an email, info@familymeeting.org, and schedule that speaking event.
Yeah, we really, really enjoy coming to marriage retreats and marriage conferences and sharing with people. And it's always so fantastic because when we're finished with a session or whatever, and people come up to us and they're like, oh man, this happened to us, or what you said blew my mind. That's exactly what the problem is that we have in our home, and we get to hear from people, and it's just so fun to interact with people. And oftentimes I'll have my phone right there, and some of these conversations I'll write down, and we will end up having a podcast episode on a simple conversation or comment that someone makes at one of these marriage conferences. We love it so much. So if you can be part of one, boy, that would be fun to meet you in person, maybe sometime in the coming year.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So Thomas, I'm going to ask you this question because we are big here at the family meeting about the why. Why? That's a good question to ask. You know, if you had a toddler ever in your lifetime, you have heard the question why a million times, and you probably hate the question why.
Oh my gosh. God bless you, toddler parents right now.
I know, it's hard, you guys. Keep going. They'll get past it. But when we're adults, we like to know the why, don't we? We want to know, why is this information important? So here's what I want to ask you, Thomas. Why is it so important to recognize the significant difference between the way that men and women think?
Well, this is similar to what we talked about last week, in the fact that if I don't understand the way that you think and you don't understand the way that I think, then that can lead to assumptions. Mm-hmm. That can lead to miscommunication, some aggravation. Those things in and of itself can lead to arguments and fights. And so then we're not really working to resolve the issue at hand. Mm-hmm. And so I think just getting some clarity about the way that our specific minds work as male and female can help us be able to better communicate and better understand our spouse, which leads to a closer relationship.
Well said. Now, I also really like the verse in the Bible that says that husbands are to dwell with their wives according to knowledge. In other words, you're supposed to know your spouse.
Yeah.
And I believe that that is a principle that goes both ways. It's not just that the spouse is supposed to understand, the husband is supposed to understand the wife, but it goes both ways. I believe that we can take that principle and apply it to women knowing their husbands as well. So it is really important to understand one another and to know each other. And so these kinds of studies can help us. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things on this podcast. We are going to be talking a little bit about some things that we read in the book, Men Are Like Waffles, Women Are Like Spaghetti. We're going to talk about some articles that you can find on Focus on the Family on their blog. And we are going to talk about something too, I cannot remember, but we cite the source in a little bit. I think it's from Amen something or the other. I can't remember, but that's coming up too. So we've compiled a lot of information from different sources. And of course, then we're going to give you our perspective as well. But let's jump into this and let's talk about the man's mind first.
All right, let's do it. Now, as we say with most of these things, there's exceptions to the rule. So
yeah,
if you're the exception, don't take it personally. This is kind of a generalization, but the way that a man's mind typically works is this. I know it's true of my mind.
Okay.
A man's mind is kind of like boxes, where every box represents something. And some of these boxes even have lids and locks. Okay. So the typical man lives in one box at a time, in one box only. And so when a man is at work, he's at work. He's in the work box.
Okay, so if you are at work, are you typically, how often is it like, oh, you think about the kids, or you think about me, or you think about finances, or whatever? Like, do those things kind of cross your mind as you are working?
Not typically.
Okay, it's rare.
Yeah.
And something that maybe would interrupt that would be like a phone call or a text from me or the kids, or...
Yeah, or if I complete a project and I want to show it to you.
Okay.
So I want you to come in the box and admire whatever it is that I've accomplished.
Yes, which I love that when you do that. But you're still in the work box.
Yes, totally.
Okay.
When he's in the garage tinkering around, it's not something I do, but a lot of guys like to tinker around in the garage. He's in the garage tinkering.
This was interesting about the book, the Waffles and Spaghetti book. So one thing that they said is one reason why so many men enjoy like being in a garage and either woodworking or maintaining a car or working on machinery or whatever it may be, is it talked about how men like to complete a task and they like to problem solve. So when they are in the garage or workshop or whatever it may be, they are repeatedly problem solving. They're fixing something, and that feels right. And then they can close that box and go on to another, which that was kind of enlightening for me.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
So when he's watching TV, he's watching TV. Then there's one box.
Okay.
It's just a box of nothing, where nothing's going on, nothing's happening. And this exact conversation has happened in our home a lot.
Okay.
Where you will ask me, what are you thinking? Like, what are you thinking about? And I'll say nothing. And you lose it.
I find it really hard to believe.
Like, how can you be thinking nothing? Like, you've got to be thinking about something else. You're thinking about other women, or you're thinking about this or that. And it's like, no, I'm literally thinking about nothing. And so, ladies, your husband has a box. your boyfriend, your fiance has a box labeled nothing, and literally will go in that box and nothing is happening.
This is incomprehensible. I cannot understand this. I cannot come to terms with this in my mind because I don't have boxes, but I also don't have any nothingness ever. So I don't understand it, and it almost upsets me. Partially because I'm jealous of this box.
Yeah.
It sounds nice. It sounds peaceful and quiet and serene, and it sounds like a box I would enjoy being in. But because I've never been in that box or understood it, it's like I just don't get it. But I guess I'm happy for you that you have it. It's just I don't get it. And oftentimes when you're in that box, I feel like you're being lazy or whatever. So this is something I'm working on.
Yeah.
After looking into all of this. Like, it's okay to do nothing.
But it's compartmentalizing. Mm-hmm. And so putting life and responsibilities into these different compartments. And then, once I have something else to do or it's time to move on to a different box, we close that box and we move on to the next one.
And I think that there are positives and negatives to this kind of thinking.
There's positive and negatives to everything. So
exactly.
The way that a wife's mind works,
it has positives and negatives.
Yeah.
As well. Right. So one of the positives that I see is that when you have boxes and you're compartmentalizing, you can really bring a strong focus to whatever you're doing. And that strong focus can help you achieve and do things well. And then one of the negatives that I see is you can't do a whole lot at the same time. Like you're not really multitasking. You are almost limited. It feels, in my mind, because of how my mind works, it almost seems like it could be limiting. So that's just a negative and a positive.
Or you're more focused.
Right. That's what I said first for positive.
Yeah.
So back and forth. I see positives and negatives.
Okay.
Do you?
I totally, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
There are times where
saying no.
No, there's times where I'm like, I wish that I could handle more things at one time, mm-hmm. but I just can't because I've got the boxes, and basically women's minds is like a ball of wires.
And there are times that I wish, and women, I think that you'll relate to this. There are times that I wish Thomas could handle more than one thing at a time. I'm irritated. I'm like, I know you're working at your computer. Just hurry up. Give me this information that I need real quick. But it's not real quick for him because he's got to go out of one box and into another.
And I get irritated because I'm in the box and she's wanting to concentrate on something else. And I'm like, no, let's finish this.
Yes.
This is what we're talking about. This is what we're focusing in on right now. We don't need that information at this moment. Mm-hmm. That's my perspective.
Right.
Now, your perspective is you need that information to be able to do it.
Keep moving forward. So that right there, what you just heard us say, that's the why. That's the why. We've got to know these things because that can help me understand why am I frustrated with Thomas? Why does he get frustrated with me? And it brings some understanding and we can do a better job at having patience with one another. All right, so we're going to talk now about the women's mind. And Thomas just mentioned a brief moment ago that a woman's mind is like a bowl of wires where everything is touching
ball, not
everything.
bowl.
A ball?
Yeah, a ball of wires.
I pictured like a bunch of wires thrown into a container, but okay.
Okay, sure. Yeah, container would work great, but I'd never really seen a bowl of wires.
Did I say bowl? Okay, so.
You did say bowl.
Yeah, and you said ball.
Yeah, like wires all bundled up.
I thought you said bowl.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
a container of wires.
Yeah.
Just a mess, which we have had this. We have had a container full of wires when we were remodeling our attic and you were doing the wiring, which he did a fantastic job at the wiring in our attic in our last house.
Well, and a lot of people our age they probably have a box of wires around somewhere that are used for who knows what. And you don't even know what they're for anymore. There are adapters for this, and you have the white and the red and the yellow to plug in this thing.
Ever again?
And audio wires, so you could connect this to that. So most of us have something like that around the house.
And the crafty ladies, they have containers of yarns and strings and twines. I'm thinking of you, Miss Janelle. Love you, lady. I know you've got containers of yarn that are all mixed up, I bet.
You pasta lovers have your bowl of spaghetti.
Yes. So whatever little illustration you want to use,
Yeah.
the whole idea is that all of our thoughts, women, intertwine and touch one another. Okay. So if you're looking at this container of wires and you follow one wire around the whole container, how many times does it intersect with other wires? Constantly. It's constantly. And you know, women, if your brain works typically, then you know, you're like, yep, mine does this, because that's how mine is. It is all over the place. When I am washing the dishes, I am not just washing the dishes. I'm like, okay, so once I'm done with this, I'm going to do this. And then, oh, that reminds me that the kids have to get this done. I've got to pick up the kids. I wonder how they're going to feel when they get out of volleyball. Are they going to feel good? Have their feelings been hurt? What will this do to affect their future? Thomas and I should really do more to spend time with the kids. But we need to spend time with each other. If our relationship isn't strong, the kids' relationship won't be strong. And on and on and on it goes. That's just washing dishes.
And there have been times where we've been having conversations and we're talking about a certain topic, and then all of a sudden you are way out here in right field somewhere on a totally, what seems to me, an unrelated topic.
Yes.
It seems to me. But that's because you've been kind of running this little wire connection where you've jumped from here to here to here to here, and there's been 7 or 8 interconnections
that you haven't seen or heard.
Yeah, and so there's literally been times where I'm like, what does that have to do with that?
Mm-hmm. Right. And for you, it doesn't have anything to do with it, but for us, there is a train of thought that led there. And this is how women face life. This is how we face everything. Every thought and issue connects to every other thought and issue in some way. Life is much more of a process for women than it is for men. And we also attach emotions to thoughts, which is different than men. And we're going to dig into that a little bit more. But let's talk a little bit more about the detailed differences about how men think and how women think.
So as a kind of a result of the way that our minds work, men are problem solvers by nature. So they enter a box, size up the problem, and formulate a solution. And you think about the conversations that we have had together, Lysandra, where you are, and this is part of the verbal processing as well, but also the way that your mind works, you are telling me about things, conversations you've had, things that are happening, schedule, whatever. And I immediately wanted to jump into how do we solve this? Mm-hmm. How do we fix this? And that's kind of what the default is. And how can I formulate a solution for this? So, but in our careers, we as men consider what it will take to be successful, and we focus in on that. In communication, we look for the bottom line.
That has caused us a lot of problems in the past.
Yeah.
We've come through it, but where I just want to talk everything out, and he's like, "What's the point? What do you want to say to me? What's the bottom line?"
Yeah.
And you've had to understand, like, I just want you to be patient and listen to me. And now you're amazing at that.
What I think is listening to conversations between you and your sister and your brother.
Yes.
Because he's very direct.
Yeah, and he has no time for the details.
And obviously he's not married to either of you, so he doesn't have to be
He doesn't have to be gentle and patient.
Exactly.
Yes.
As diplomatic.
And let me say, as much as I verbally process and share details, my sister to a farther greater extent.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Because there are times when I'm like, wow, that's really detailed. Okay. And so when my sister and I are talking to my brother, his mind almost just explodes. He cannot take it. And this is what he always says. Just stop. What is the point? What do you want to ask me?
Or what do you want me to do?
What do you want me to do?
Like, just tell me what it is. I don't need all the extra details. I don't need to see how this wire is jumping from this wire to this wire to this wire.
Yes.
Just get to the end of the trail and then tell me that.
And there are times when I will be gracious and just get to the point for my brother. But there are other times when I'm like, no, Josiah, you have to listen to me. And I want you to understand why I want you to do this thing. And he's like, I don't care why. And he'll say that, I don't care why. I'm like, yeah, but I care that you know why. And so there are times when I will push the issue. Most of the time, I will just, defer to him and get to the point.
Yeah, it is somewhat comical though.
It is
listening to you guys. When they find it, they get there as quickly as possible. So whatever the bottom line is, I want to get there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
In decision making, they look for an approach they can buy into and apply it as often as possible.
Okay. And do you find that true with yourself? Is that just a generalization, or do you find that true with yourself? Like if you have found a solution that works most of the time, that's how you approach the situation every time?
Totally. Yeah.
Can you think of a personal example? I'm trying to think.
Off the top of my head, no.
Okay. Maybe that'll come later as you internally process.
Yeah, exactly. But we strategically organize our life in these boxes, and then we'll spend most of our time in the boxes in which we can succeed. So I want to spend most of my time in the boxes where I feel like I'm good at it, I can accomplish, it makes me feel good, all those sorts of things. So this strong motivation will lead him to seek out the boxes that work, and he will ignore the boxes that confuse him or make him feel like a failure.
That is very enlightening as a wife. That is something that I think we would do well to hold in our minds and to remember that maybe it frustrates you. Why does he always play video games? I'm so annoyed by this huge waste of time. Why is he always playing that computer game? Maybe it's because he can win it. He is successful at it. Why does he always go play basketball? Why is he always at the gym? Why is he always tinkering on the car? Why is he always woodworking? Whatever it is. If he's found something that he's successful at, he will continue to do it.
Well, that could be a rest or recharge box as well. That's not necessarily it.
Okay. So what is one that you would say that you're successful at and that you like to go to? A box.
Husband box.
Well, agree to disagree.
Father box.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Yeah, so you'll spend time with me and the kids.
I was just...
That was a joke.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I felt like I should pretend it was serious. Just in case. We're just giving each other looks.
Yeah.
You have to watch YouTube, though, to know that.
But on the other hand, a man who always falls short at work or feels he never meets the expectations around him may find out that he is pretty good at being lazy.
Really?
So he'll then develop a commitment to being lazy because he knows he can do that today with the same proficiency as yesterday.
That terrifies me.
Yeah.
Because I think you're good at being lazy because you love that nothing box.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
Nothing box is not a lazy box.
Oh my goodness. This is so hard to understand.
It's not.
Because my mind does not work this way.
All you have to do is read the labels.
Okay. Could I please get a printout of the boxes? I would love that. I need a spreadsheet.
It'll take a while. Some of the boxes are pretty far away.
Yes.
Like my emotional box is kind of far away.
Yeah, it's like tucked down deep in the basement.
You know what's weird though? It's weird how some boxes are close to certain boxes and far away from other boxes. For instance, my emotional box is very close to my preaching box for some reason.
Interesting. Yes, because you pretty much never cry, but if you're going to tear up, it's going to be while you're preaching.
Yeah. So for some reason, those two boxes are very close to each other.
Fascinating. What's a box that's really far away from another box?
Emotional box and husband box.
That's rough for the wife. Your poor wife. All right, so let's talk about something that's interesting about a woman. So we've talked about your boxes and kind of how those practically impact life. So our crazy box of wires that we have that's all interconnected, this can affect our lives in a practical way in the way of multitasking. And typically, women are much better at multitasking than men, which can be a good thing or can be a bad thing. And Thomas writes in our book, Happily Never After, about how my multitasking can sometimes lead to something being burnt in the kitchen.
So we had a situation not long ago.
A situation. Oh my, it's now a situation.
It is a situation.
Sounds serious.
So once again, this goes to the box thing, right? For instance, when I am cooking pizza rolls.
Oh, pizza rolls.
I'm in
Bane of my existence.
I'm in my pizza roll box. Mm-hmm. And anybody who does pizza rolls, makes pizza rolls, know that you have a very small window to take them out of the oven before all the toppings are completely out of them and you're eating basically just a shell.
My recommendation is just don't eat pizza rolls because they're not that good anyway.
They are. They're
this
delicious.
man loves pizza rolls.
I do love pizza rolls.
He goes back to his teen years when he eats them. Brings him happiness.
Was it my birthday?
It was your birthday. He picked pizza rolls for his birthday dinner.
Yeah, but I wanted them fancied up where you...
I'm so embarrassed about that. That is humiliating for me as a woman.
Or you get olive oil
so you know.
and grated Parmesan cheese and you shake it up and you coat the pizza rolls in Parmesan cheese. Then you bake them in the oven.
I did that. And I think I did that pretty well when I cooked your birthday dinner.
Yes. It's the best dinner I've had around here in a while.
Oh my gosh, I will kill you right now on this podcast. I don't even care if they know it was me.
But when you're watching the pizza rolls, you have to watch them because as soon as one starts to open up and the filling starts to just peek out a little, you have to take them out.
Yeah.
Because it'll go from like hot, nice filling to empty shell in a matter of seconds.
So I want to just share something that happened when Thomas was not with me. When I dumped out the pizza rolls onto the oven, the pan, Catherine was with me. And I was like, oh snap, look at these pizza rolls. Several of them were busted. Like they were frozen, but they were busted. And I was like, your dad is going to blame that on me. Just wait. And I was like, and you're my witness. So remember that these are busted right now, frozen. And of course he comes downstairs and opens the oven and they are busted. And you right away were like, you haven't been watching these. And I was like, Catherine? And she did tell you.
But those were not the only ones busted open.
I would like to respectfully close the pizza roll box, lock it, and walk away from it.
But
Can we do that?
here's the problem, though. You weren't just watching the pizza rolls.
No, I was like cleaning the kitchen and talking to Catherine and looking at senior picture photo shoot ideas.
Yeah.
All at the same time.
So most of the time, the multitasking is a great thing, and I appreciate and I admire that about you.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it.
In certain instances, just get in this box right here and stay there.
Like the pizza roll box or the sex box.
Exactly. Those two boxes just require that focus. That's it. Focus on that.
Yes. Okay. So
we could probably get those boxes close together.
You cannot combine boxes, remember? No,
I know,
pizza
but
rolls
I can set this box right next to this box.
I'm hearing what's happening for your next birthday.
Man, that's a long wait.
Anticipation, babe. Okay, let's see. Should we go on? So yes, we can do so many things all at the same time. And women, you can think of your greatest multitasking moments, and you think of those with, I'm sure, fondness and. I mean, it just gives you this feeling of success, like when you can get so much done at one time, and it's like impressive. I know for me, I sometimes am trying to like beat my previous multitasking record. I want to get as much done as possible in the best way, most efficiently. It's like I'm all about it. So one of the reasons though that we multitask like this is because our thoughts, emotions, and convictions are all connected. So we're able to process more information and keep track of more activities all at the same time. So as a result, most of us women pursue connecting life together. It feels better when life is all connected because that's how we see things anyway. So we do solve problems. Men are these box problem solvers, and we still solve problems, but we do it from a different perspective than these guys do.
Yeah.
We will constantly see the need to talk things through, and a lot of times in conversation, we can link together that logical, emotional, relational, and spiritual aspects, all those aspects of the issue, and that's when we can solve the problem. And that's another reason why in conversation, it's pretty easy for us to connect things like the logical, emotional, relational, and spiritual. And Thomas, you have witnessed this many times in our conversations where I'm discussing a situation that happened and I am bringing in emotions, talking about how I felt, how the other woman must have felt, how difficult it was for their children. Then I'm adding in, like, maybe it's a spiritual problem with me. Maybe I'm not connected to the Holy Spirit the way I need to be, or maybe she needs to have some spiritual guidance, and I will connect all of that stuff all at the same time, just talking about one situation. And so that's something to keep in mind too, because that's also a way that all that stuff affects our problem solving. Whereas men typically will look at the problem solving and it's just a formula. This plus this will bring this.
Yeah.
For us, there's so much more to problem solving. But this can create significant stress for couples, because while we wives are making all these connections, our husbands are trying to keep up with it, and they're jumping from box to box. With us, there are no boxes. It's all connected anyway. So we can just rapid fire. Whereas your husband is trying to keep up with you, and he can't. So men have a choice to make. They can either sit and just let them take this journey of conversation through all the connections and just let them lead you on the journey. Or you can give up and be like, I'm done with this. And you can go into your nothing box. But I really appreciate a husband who lets me just go to the end of my discussion, of my connections, and hears them all out. I really appreciate that about you.
Well, and here's one of the benefits of being able to multitask and having these connections where you can do all this at one time. Because I think about what I do as leading a church. Sunday's a pretty big day for that, but I'm trying to be in my lead the service box and make sure everything's ready for the service. And then I've got to quickly jump into my preaching box for that moment, that I can often neglect the important task of making personal connections with people and really focusing in on the people, because I'm in my got to lead the service box and make sure everything at church is lined up and ready to go. Whereas you're able to hit those connections all at once.
Yes. And that was frustrating to me at the beginning, because I'm like, Thomas, how can you neglect the people? It's about people. It's all about people. But I didn't fully understand that he's already on, at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning, he's already in his preaching box or, leading the service box, whatever it may be. And if I'm leading a ladies event at 6 a.m., I'm in all the boxes. Like, everything's connected.
That's because you only have one box.
Exactly. Yeah.
And all the wires are in the one box.
Right. And so I don't understand how your mind works. I didn't understand how your mind works. So I was frustrated with Thomas that he seemed sometimes cold to people on Sundays. And I'm like, this is when you need to be the warmest and be the most loving and everything. And so, but we've kind of worked with each other. You've helped me to understand, to kind of let you focus. And I've brought in maybe the people side of it.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to be more intentional about jumping out of the church service box into the people box.
Your least favorite box?
Probably one of them.
That goes to the fact that he is an introvert. So
yeah, but we talked about men and wanting to lean towards whatever they can be successful at, and this is true of communication as well. So if a man believes he can successfully talk with his wife and reach a desirable outcome, he'll be highly motivated to converse. If, on the other hand, the conversation seems pointless to him, or he finds understanding his wife impossible, he loses his motivation to talk, and then he'll clam up.
This is something that's good for us wives to understand about you.
Yeah, because if most wives are better communicators as far as having those types of conversations. And so if a wife makes her husband feel incompetent or not as significant in this conversational realm, then he will avoid that box. So you can do things that will kind of push him away from having those conversations.
And what can you do to make him be comfortable and feel successful after a conversation? Maybe simply saying like, that really helped. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Just little things. It doesn't have to be some huge thing.
Mm-hmm. Great.
But it's one of the reasons why men are come and say, is there any point to this conversation? Is this conversation going anywhere? Can you just get to the point? And these are statements a man will often make out of frustration because he doesn't know how to make conversation work with his wife.
Mm-hmm. And I just really dislike those questions because I'm like, of course it's going somewhere. Why would I be talking if it's not going anywhere? I know exactly what I'm talking about, but I can see why it wouldn't seem that way.
Yeah, because your wires take a very scenic route oftentimes to get there. But for you, they're all necessary points to stop along the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And helping him to see how those things connect sometimes,
mm-hmm.
instead of just assuming that he knows and should know why they connect, can go a long way in helping him as well.
That's good to know.
But the success drive is why men find it so easy to develop hobbies that consume their time. So if he finds something he's good at, it makes him feel good about himself and about his life. And because men tend to be good with mechanical and spatial activities, they get emotionally attached to building, fixing, and chasing things. Yard projects become expressions of his personality. The car becomes his signature. Fishing becomes an all-consuming pursuit of the right equipment, the right fishing spot, the right friends. The computer stops being a tool of work as it transforms into an educational or entertaining friend. It makes predictable moves and gives predictable feedback. And because a man knows that he will get what he will get back from his computer, he spends more and more time with his keyboard while he spends less time face-to-face with his wife.
Interesting to understand that. So now we want to just mention this study conducted by Amen Clinics.
Amen.
About the differences between male and female brains. So here's a little study on this, and I think that there's some interesting information here. But we're going to breeze through it rather quickly. There are significant differences between the brains of men and women that have been measured in a laboratory. Seen on a brain scan and observed in our everyday lives. Here are some of the most important gender-based brain differences that you need to know. Female brains are bruisser. In problem solving, women tend to harness several areas of the brain, while men rely on a more localized effort. And in many of these studies that I was reading up on, it talks about how the woman's left and right brains talk and communicate with each other. Like she'll be using left and right brain at the same time, whereas men typically don't do that. Which, this is kind of a side note, it makes women a lot more susceptible to long-lasting problems if they have a stroke, because both of their brain, the sides of their brain, are affected by it, whereas a men typically only one side will be affected because he only uses one side at a time. That was kind of an interesting thing. So.
Yeah, and it kind of, even with just the study they've done with here in a laboratory, kind of highlights the one single box of wires versus multiple boxes for men. The prefrontal cortex is sleepier in men, they said.
I can tell.
Yeah. I want to take a nap right now. But this is involved with planning, judgment, empathy, and impulse control. So this can make men more likely to take risks, which can make them more vulnerable to head injuries that could further decrease activity in this brain area. And it's kind of funny to see some of the social media posts that, hey, this is why women live longer than men. You see them just doing totally stupid stuff. Like, this is exactly why.
This is the reason it's
This is what
their
we're
brain.
talking about here. So, when you talk about the brain's emotional centers are more active in women. However, it's important to note, as we talked about at the beginning, whenever we have discussions like this, there are exceptions to the rule, and not all women are the same, nor are all men the same. There's still a lot of research to be done to gain a better understanding of the brains.
Right.
So there's still so much we don't know.
So just putting these male-female brains side by side, just some quick comparisons. All right, so men are better at performing single tasks. Women are better at multitasking. And remember, there's exceptions to the rule. Women are better at attention, word memory, social cognition, and verbal abilities, whereas men are better at spatial processing, and women are better at fine motor coordination and retrieving information from long-term memory. Do we see that in our relationship?
Totally.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that I can remember long-term memory better is because it's all attached to my emotions. I remember how I felt on a certain day. And so that'll bring up that emotion a lot of times. Men and women appear to have different ways to encode memories, sense emotions, recognize faces, solve certain problems, and make decisions. Memories tied to an emotion can be easier to remember for a woman. Men believe success comes from ability, whereas women believe that effort is what brings success oftentimes. Now, of course, exceptions to every rule. But because everything is connected for a woman, women are more likely to feel that everything is out of control. This happens in our home. If our garage is not organized, which most of the time our garage is not organized, all the time our garage is not organized to what I wish it was. And many times it's out of control, terrible, that it really upsets me. When the garage is out of control, I feel like everything's out of control. Like I can literally feel like life is falling apart because, and I should say when I'm thinking about the garage. So if I walk through the garage, I'm like, our life is falling apart.
Yeah.
What is happening to us? We have everything's insane. And it's just because I've walked through the garage.
And I, most of the time, don't notice what the garage even looks like.
No. And I'll say something like, can you even believe this? And he's walking through the garage, stepping over things. And he's like, what?
Exactly.
Like, ugh. But that can help, I think, men understand their wives, because if the house is out of control, she can feel like everything's out of control because it's all connected. So just kind of keeping that in mind.
Well, and I think this can help maybe some guys who you're doing home projects or whatever else. You have a home project that just drags on and on and on. For you, that might not be a big issue, but for her, that unfinished project is linked to everything else in her life.
Yes. If you were doing a home renovation that you wouldn't finish, I couldn't stand it. Well, that's why I've learned to do a lot of home renovation projects.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that's interesting too. And tell me if you think this is true, Thomas. Men want a simpler life with fewer boxes.
I think so.
Because they feel more in control.
Yeah.
So when we add in more boxes, like we add in the volleyball box because now it's a volleyball season, and we add in maybe writing, and now we're going to add in, we're going to write another book. Does that make you less at peace and more uncomfortable with life just because, okay, life is no longer simple, there's extra boxes in here?
Kind of. What it does is it makes it so we can't hit the boxes that we either enjoy or recharge in as often as we'd like to. So, for instance, the volleyball box has been open a lot the last 2.5 months. So that means I can't get in my box to recharge, or sometimes it means we can't get in our family box.
For family day and whatnot.
And so it makes it harder to recharge and all those sorts of things. So now finally, after last night, that the volleyball box for me is closed.
Yes. We had so much fun last night. We played parents versus the team, the volleyball team. And I feel like we crushed them.
We destroyed them.
And it was awesome. And it was so fantastic. You know, getting to talk trash to your children on the court is just a great feeling.
I talked so much garbage to these 4 girls.
It was fantastic. When they served, he tried to mess them up by like screaming things. It was fun. We had a good time.
Yeah. But I'm very glad that box is closed.
Because life is a little more simple now. And you have more time for your other boxes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That box took a lot of time and energy.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I hope that all the information we've discussed today has been helpful in you understanding your spouse and hopefully not only helping in future conflict, but maybe even preventing some conflict in the future. And what we have been able to talk about on a short podcast episode is only scratching the surface. You could really, really dig into this. I know there's a lot of good books on this and blogs out there. So I do recommend looking into this a little bit more, especially if this is really causing maybe some contention in your marriage.
So we want you to end with a family meeting tonight and just discuss the ways that you've seen this to be true in your marriage. So spending some time as a husband and a wife talking about the different ways that your brains function. And for you guys, it's kind of explaining to your wife the different boxes that you have in your mind, the ones you really enjoy, the ones you feel successful at, the ones you hit the most often. And then for you ladies, it's helping your husband to understand how everything's connected. So how does this thought lead to this thought, lead to that thought, lead to this thought, where you finally get to here. Helping him to be able to see the roadway, the map, will go a long way in helping him to understand who you are as a person and how you think and how you operate, which affects the way that we interact with each other. Mm-hmm. Whether it's just communicating on a day-to-day basis, whether it's conflict resolution and all that kind of stuff, having that greater understanding of the way that each of our minds work will help us better relate to each other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. Leave us a review. We'd really appreciate that. And if you found this information to be helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org. or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
And we would like to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we talk about how our children can become idols in our lives. Yes, it is possible. We can become so obsessed with our kids that they take almost all the time in our lives. They may come before our husbands or our wives, and they may even take the place of God in our lives.
Yeah, very necessary conversation. Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
All right. Thanks for coming, YouTube. I wonder if you have learned something about how your brain works or learned something about how your spouse's brain works. I'd be interested to hear from you. Maybe you have a story that illustrates perfectly the difference in how your minds work.
Or maybe you just want to say, you know what? My spouse's brain doesn't work most of the time. And you can say that.
You could. You shouldn't, but you could say that.
Maybe it's true, though.
I would love to hear from the men because I don't have a man's mind. I would like to hear what your boxes are. I'm very curious to know what are the boxes you have in your head. Ladies, I know you have every box, right? You have it all in there. But what about the men? What are you thinking? What's in there?
Sex box might be the largest box.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Yeah. And then you put your pizza roll box next to that one. And your nap box is on the other side of that.
I know. Sounds like a great day for you.
It looks like my plans for today have changed, so I'm thankful for this podcast episode.
My plans for today have not changed.
You had that as your plan the whole time?
Nope.
Nice.
I'm just not changing my plans to be that plan.
Oh.
Nice try.
Dang. All right. We'll see y'all later.
Bye.